Broadcasting and streaming live all across America. This is Home Talk USA with Michael King. Join us as we discuss topics pertaining to your home with industry-leading experts. Hosted by Michael King, a licensed general contractor with more than 30 years of experience in home improvements and author of Contracting with the King. This hour is brought to you by HomeTalk.expert. Do you have questions about your next home improvement project or home repairs? Now you can chat with verified home repair and home improvement experts in just minutes. Get the help you need with HomeTalk.expert. That's HomeTalk.expert. We invite you to listen at HomeTalkUSA.com, one of the best resources for home improvement information around today. Your best life begins with your best home, and there's no place like Home Talk. That's HomeTalkUSA.com. And now, HomeTalk.expert proudly presents the #1 home improvement radio program in the country with the man from the Bayou Land. Your host, the Cajun Contractor, Michael King.
Hey, welcome back to Home Talk USA. That's right. I want to welcome all of you to the Made America Show, where we're going to be broadcasting all across this great, great country of ours. Don't forget, we are streaming live on the World Wide Web at HomeTalkUSA.com. And don't forget, HomeTalkTV.com. We have episode 46, which is Trimmer Slab, is this week's show. Now, I'd like to welcome to the show my sidekick. He's becoming one of the very popular hosts here on the Home Talk family. The host, my co-host of the Made America, Mr. Greg Owens. Greg! Wow, I miss you all week, man. You miss me?
Yeah, I had a busy week. My daughter got married this week, so it's been a lot of fun and a lot of preparation, and we couldn't be happier.
Well, Greg, I tell you, we're going to talk the next couple of segments here because there's a lot of information going on, a lot of manufacturing, a lot of debate going on about our manufacturing, U.S. manufacturing companies. Should they stay? Should they go? Some politics are getting involved. There's a lot. We're just trying to sort through this information so we can let our audience know exactly, because we don't have really a skin in the game other than to provide real honest information, regardless of which side of the aisle you want to flow from. But at the end of the day, there's just a lot of misconceptions. And Greg, I know you want to talk, and so let's just have a talk to our audience and to our manufacturers. Maybe our manufacturers that's thinking about bringing their product, their service back to the U.S. Or maybe a company that's saying, I'm scared if the other side wins, I'm going to start taking my money out of the U.S. There's a lot going on here, Greg. So can you clarify some of this stuff of what you're hearing out there?
Well, there really is, and it's really a major shift in thinking. 25, 30 years ago, it was a shift toward globalism. We were told, make it the cheapest you possibly can in the whole globalist import model. That era ended about 8 or 10 years ago when we started to realize that caused a lot of problems. And I think in the last 3 or 4 years, that whole shift towards what I call blind globalism is sort of dead. I mean, even the people over in Davos that get together in Switzerland, the billionaires and the Wall Street crowd, they admit that it's over and it needs to take on a new form, and we need to move forward from a model that's largely failed not only us but the rest of the world. And it's an interesting combination on the political side, and we're not going to get political today, but the Republican effort really started with Donald Trump, getting back to the grassroots type politics, protecting those American workers and those communities that were sort of left out in the cold during this era of globalization. And there are members of Congress who were on the other side of the issue, Marco Rubio being one of them, that is really leading the charge right now to reverse some of these bad policies. They've been joined by another group of what I would call the China hawks that see, China as not only a military threat, but how they've debilitated our entire industrial base by sucking up all of these industries. And some of those key industries are our steel industry, which used to be the largest in the world. And I think now we're like number 10. Our auto industry, we've had a lot of discussions about that. Making machinery and equipment, if you want to build a factory here in the United States, you used to go to usually someplace in Illinois or someplace like that and buy a machine to make whatever it was you were making. Now, a lot of that has gone away. And the area that my company's in is just general consumer goods. I mean, there's not a lot of that being made. But this diminishing of the industrial base has a lot of implications beyond just manufacturing. It's also R&D, the lack of engineers coming out of our schools and the lack of trade skills and people that are interested in manufacturing. So it's a big challenge and something that people on both sides of the aisle are interested in solving. And then on the Democrat side of the aisle, they kept the Trump tariffs in place. In fact, they even added some new ones. There are Democrats like Sherrod Brown from Ohio that have always been hawks on trade and have fought back some of this globalization tendencies. I think about Ohio, Western New York. These are communities that were decimated when manufacturing moved overseas.
Greg, you're making some great points here. And again, it don't matter what side of the aisle you're on. They both have pluses. They both have minuses. But I'm going to be honest with you. I think our industrial states, and you know who I'm talking about, they really need to step up. They're the key to this engine. They're the key to the gas to put in the engine. They really need to step up and say, hey, enough's enough. Let's bring our jobs home. Let's bring our manufacturing home. And it has to start somewhere. And, me and you can only get on the air and educate so much, but we're just a small few. But at the end of the day, it's the people in these industrial states that really need to stand up, because me and you both know, and especially Cheryl Manufacturing, I'm going to give them a big shout out, Liberty Tabletop. But the quality of life that you're providing in your little community by having your little manufacturing shop sitting right there. And,
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, we've seen the impact firsthand that it's had on our community. And it's not just, you think of manufacturing jobs, I think a lot of times we think of just factory workers, right? But how many engineers, how many supervisors, how many cost accountants? And then, you've got the pizza shop down. There used to be 3 pizza shops that fed 2,300 people lunch. Now, we're 75 and they don't sell as many slices of pizza.
Well, and again, the point I'm trying to make is, and my slogan, I'm the originator, not the duplicator. And what I'm trying to say is that America invents, America originates. America does not copy. America does not counterfeit. These countries counterfeit. And I knew we were going to have a problem about 15 years ago. I can't believe I'm that old. God, Lord, I've been on the air that long. But I remember, and we talked about this at the trade shows. I've did every trade show for 27 years, all of them, and I bring my show there and I meet the entrepreneurs, the inventors, the manufacturers. But when I start seeing the China bringing their cameras and start taking pictures of the booth, and I knew right there we were going to have a problem. The American manufacturer were going to give them our technology. They have no rules. They were going to steal it. And once they get the blueprint of that typical technology, and then that's when all your knockoffs come. And I know this was 15 years ago, and I got on the air, and let me tell you, I took some heat. I took heat on this. Is because, man, King, shut up, man. What are you doing, man? We want to put some money in the show. We want to do this. I said, no, it ain't about the money anymore. It's about my survival. It's about my heritage. It's about being an American. It's about, because I tell you, when I go into American factories, and I've been to Green Products and Sacramento, and I go to and see the factories, and I talk to the American worker, man. I tell you, they're fighters, man. They're fighting for everything. All we got to do is give them the tools to fight. They're our soldiers. They're our soldiers, Greg. They're our soldiers, and we got to give them the ammunition to fight. And they're fighting for their survival, because they know the education base, the tax base, the quality of life that they're being provided. Look, they want to contribute. They don't want anything for nothing. And you have to contribute into this massive system. If you don't put anything into the system, eventually your engine runs out of gas, right? And it ain't going anywhere. And that's where we almost at now. We're not going anywhere, Greg. I hate to say it.
We are not.
We're not going anywhere, Greg. I hate to say it, and I know I'm going to hear the heat, but our engine is on that little white line that's way at the bottom right now, and eventually, we're just trying to keep this afloat.
Well, the good news is your moment of clarity 15 or so years ago is now mainstream thought down in Washington, D.C. A lot of people have swung to your view, and fortunately for all of us as Americans, it's the pendulum is swinging back hard.
Well, we're going to take a short break, Greg. Hold on that thought right there. We've got to take a short break. We're going to have some guests coming up. I'm going to be talking to you. This is so important that me and you have the discussion, and maybe we get these little seeds out there and be Johnny Appleseed. Well, this is Home Talk USA right here with the Event America Show and the Made America Show. We'll be right back. Yay! Welcome to Made in America, part of Home Talk USA Radio family. Don't forget, this segment of the show is sponsored by Green Products. Protect your wood from future damage with Green's Copper Wood Preservative at greenproductsco.net. Greg, before the break, though, we're talking about the future of American manufacturing. We're talking about simply our survival right now. And it's amazing, due to the Genesis Communication Radio Network, one of my first networks 27 years ago. And thank God I need to tell my audience that, they're no longer there, but they did send me all the files of every radio interview I've ever done. As a matter of fact, Greg, as you know, we're on 1,098 now, episode. And to have 1,098 episodes in your archive. And the point I'm trying to make is people can go back 20 years, 25 years, and see how far this show is in the education that we have put out there of the information of predicting, not only, going over the past, talking about the present, but also predicting the future. And you're right. I take it as a compliment of things I was talking about 15, 20 years ago now in fruition. And I tell you, if I can get in front of them, Congress, or get in front of them, testify and let them go back and listen to what I said. Now, a lot of your players have changed. The House of Representatives changes pretty much every 2 years of power. It goes left, goes right, goes left and right. The Senate, due to our founding fathers, their wisdom, they say they got to be more stable. That's why they are at a 6-year term. But the point I make is we got to get the people in the House to really create that big buzz towards the Senate. We really need them to rise up and fight for this country. And until that left side fights to that right side, let me tell you, I'm not impressed with none of them. I'm not impressed with any of them. I'm sorry. They all wish-wash on different issues. There's a couple I really like because, they are now stepping up. But I'm going to tell you, 10 years ago, they didn't step up because they were getting their little check, and the Senate is part of that little group. But the House is where the people's house is where it's got to start. And we start with there. And then you're going to see a lot of changes, and I'm confident it's going to happen. And
15 years ago, when you were talking about that on the program, you were howling into the wind. I mean, people looked at you. It was like Matt and I when we started our business back in 2005. Yeah. People looked at us like we were nuts. I mean, you bought a manufacturing facility in New York. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And
I told you that when I first met you. I told you that when I first met you.
Now when you go down to D.C. 15 years later. You're going to find that the majority of the people agree with you. Now, getting things done in D.C. is a little bit different than just agreeing with somebody or telling them that you're going to agree with them. But I think everybody has really recognized what you saw going away was the self-sufficiency and the success of our country. We need to get two things back. We need to get the scope of manufacturing back, which are trained individuals that have experience doing things. They're still out there. They're just not enough, not enough of them for us to be able to scale up. And one of the things that we talked about in some of our advertising at Liberty is, Rosie the Riveter. Everybody knows who that is. And it's actually interesting. The building that we're manufacturing in was built during World War II to make clips for machine guns. And that was back when we had over 150 engineers on our staff that made that pivot and helped get us through that crisis. Where's Rosie the Riveter going to go to work today if that happens?
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of little factories and the big giants have simply gone away.
Well, let me tell you this now. I think the biggest problem we have is trade, the trade organizations, the trades, not companies, you know what I'm talking about, it's trade schools. That's what I'm saying.
Yep.
You know who the father of the trade school was? Ronald Reagan. Father of trade schools. He did the largest implementation of trade schools all across this country because he knew in the wisdom of Ronald Reagan, President Reagan, is that all little Johnnies are not meant to go to college.
Right.
And he knew that if he could provide trade schools to the plumbers and electricians, and that's what he did. Then unfortunately, one side came in, and I'm not going to mention the president, that Democratic president that everybody loved, eliminate them all. Now I have a big trade school right down the road. It's probably sitting on 15 acres. It's got classrooms. Well, it's been vacant for, but we got to get back into the trade show. I keep saying trade shows, trade schools. We got to start opening up trade schools again. We got to start, the mechanics and the plumbers, and even the trade schools of manufacturing and technology. These trades, they don't know how to do computers because you got to remember back then with the trade schools, they didn't have these computer systems. Everything was manual this. But at the end of the day, we got to make a movement to get these trade schools open up again.
Well, it's two sides to that. Number one, it's the kid that's coming out of school that's looking for something to do, along with his parents who would be encouraging him to find that. And 20 years ago, it was manufacturing. When it's a dead end thing, plants are closing. You shouldn't do that. That has flip flopped. And now kids are taking a look at the debt that their friends are in or their older brothers and sisters are in.
Can't pay it back.
Going to college, getting a major in French or something with no teaching degree. And they're like, wow, you mean I could be a plumber, an electrician, and make $100,000+ a year, have my own business in 5 years, work in a manufacturing facility? It would be great. And then the other side of that is economic development. In the state of New York, where we are, they call us and tell us about programs that are available for apprenticeships that will pay for trade schools. So when we hire an employee, we get somebody who's already been through some significant training at the expense of the government that's starting to get behind it. And
I'm going to use myself as an example. We're going to have to take a short break, but people don't also realize not only am I a certified general contractor, but I'm also a Cordon Bleu licensed certified chef, as you know. I'm French heritage. I have, and also I can play music. So I got the 3 chromosomes of French people: music, construction, and cooking. But the point I'm trying to make is that when I was 17 years old, I was offered a job with J. Ray McDermott, an offshore company, making about $85,000 a year. I didn't have that opportunity to go to college because I wasn't going to turn down $85,000 a year as an 18-year-old. But the point is, J. Ray McDermott sent me to Cordon Bleu and got me a degree in culinary arts. So the point I'm trying to make is the same thing. Companies out there will train, educate, and pay if they know they're a good employee. Well, we're going to have to take a short break. I know I'm getting off track here. Hey, you're listening to Made in America with the Made in America guy. I got to throw that in there, Mr. Greg Owens. We're going to take a short break. We're going to be right back with another guest, another topic. We'll be back. Hey, don't forget this final episode is brought to you by Lion Energy. You can go anywhere with portable power, solar generators, lionenergy.com. Greg, this is the last segment, last two segments, and I know you have John Gardner ready to testify. Hey, Greg, let's get him on.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. And John, welcome to the program.
Sir. Thanks for having me.
Well, John, we're going to talk about two different things, and the first thing we're going to talk about is your company, CNC Broach Tools. For everybody out there that might not know what a broach tool is, what is a broach tool?
Well, a broach tool is used in a manufacturing process to broach keyways or splines. Splines are mostly in automotive or aerospace. But historically, broaching was done offline, meaning you do all your manufacturing operations, turning, grooving, reaming, drilling, boring on one CNC lathe, and you take 10,000 parts and move them to a separate broaching machine. It's like a specialty thing. It was really specialty because broaching was a crashing operation where you gouge out huge chunks of metal. So you want to do that offline on a specialty broaching machine. Or a lot of people would outsource their broaching operation to make a part, say electric motor shaft, to broaching companies. So you have to package up 10,000 electric motor shafts, ship them to a specialty broaching house, and pay to ship them back. And a lot of times they'd come in wrong. So what my dad invented the design is it allows you to use our tool on a CNC mill or lathe and do your broaching operation online, on your CNC mill, on your CNC lathe, and have your part come off complete without a second op. And we do this by, we change the speeds and feeds down to a thou depth of cut at 300 inches a minute. And so we basically save a lot of time and money for shops.
And is this something that you offer a different variety of them, sizes, and it's off the shelf, or are they custom designed for each application, or maybe both?
Yeah, we have a whole bunch off the shelf for all the standard items like 3/16, quarter inch, eighth inch, some millimeter sizes. We have a whole standard line that are off the shelf. You can get same day shipment, but we also do a lot of specialty spline stuff for like the FAA, Lockheed Martin, Ford Motor Company, U.S. Naval Nuclear Propulsion Program. They have us make specialty shapes and stuff to basically carves special shapes and parts. So we definitely do it all.
And I know our listeners out there are curious. So where can they go online where they're listening to us talk and see exactly what it is that you do?
CNCBroachTools.com.
CNCBroachTool.com. And there's a whole bunch of different fun things to look at.
Tools with an S. CNCBroachTools.com.
Tools.com. Okay, yes, perfect. And then talk to us a little bit about who your customers are. And then we're going to get into some of the challenges that you faced. The topic is Made in America. So they're made right here in the U.S., right?
So yeah, everything, yes, sir. So I started this in 2005 out of my apartment when I was waiting tables at night, and I took a secondary restaurant job because I didn't complete high school, and that's one of the things I love most about the manufacturing industry is you can just jump in and start learning and climb your way up the ladder as long as you have an open mind and can humble yourself to learn new things. And one of my mentors started off sweeping the shop floor in the 60s at a big machine shop here in Southern California, and now he owns the shop and the land underneath it. And that's the opportunity that the manufacturing industry represents, a pathway to the middle class. So I had a traumatic brain injury growing up, and I was in a coma, and my head was all messed up, so I couldn't finish high school. So I left home with a bag of books and a bag of clothes and came out to California. And after a while, I figured out I wanted to start my own business. So I revisited my manufacturing heritage. My dad was a mechanical engineer who had started a cutting tool company when I was a kid and shut it down. So I was grinding carbide inserts as a 12-year-old for my dad. And I talk about that in my book. And the rest of my extended family was in Pittsburgh. So I grew up watching Pittsburgh in the 80s and 90s fall from this mecca of manufacturing to the Rust Belt. And so my clients, I love my clients, and I've learned so much from my clients. I sell to the one-man shops in their garage all the way up to the Lockheed Martins and the Department of Energy and the U.S. Naval Fleet Readiness Division. But my bread and butter is really the smaller shops, the guys who have worked for big corporations. They started their own manufacturing company. One of the statistics I find most fascinating about the manufacturing company is that there's 252,000 manufacturing companies in America. 75% of them are 20 employees or less. And that is the real strength of our manufacturing industry, is that it's distributed now across America. It's not localized at one big massive factory in one town. It's really all over. And so those guys I find are the smartest people in the world. The guys who have learned from experience, and they have their AutoCAD, their engineering degrees, not from college, but through certifications and experience. And I've learned so much from my clients, and I'm really grateful for them, to them for, we have, I have this thing I said to every client called Keys to Using CNC Broach Tools, which talks about all the tips and tricks I've learned from every client over 20 years of business. And I tell people, hey, I'm going to send you this. Now, this isn't something I made up. This is stuff I learned from people just like you, people from listening to the feedback from every client that calls and says, hey, we tried this speed and feed and this coolant oil level and this coolant and this material. And here's a whole list of stuff. So that's a little bit more about my clients.
Yeah, this reminds me a lot about what Rita talks during the Invent America Hour, and the innovation. And it's one of the things that Michael and I were just talking about, that we've lost the scale of that. But thankfully, you're out there on the road, and you're going to visit every single one of those American manufacturing companies personally, right?
I would love to. I think there should be a documentary made called Manufacture Local, a documentary going around visiting as many of these family shops and small shops and talking to them, because it's really the backbone of America, and it's what will protect us in a national security crisis. Because right now, a significant amount of our manufacturing is done overseas. There's a Brigadier General John Adams did a very recent report saying that the defense industrial base is in serious trouble, that we have a massive over-reliance on foreign goods for a defense industrial base. And so I think, the people who can make those things are located right here in America. If they could just get the volume, if they could just get the manufacturing jobs, they just do the volume of parts to justify the investments in automation and robotics that it takes. You don't automate or buy a robotic cell if you have 20 parts to make or 100 parts to make. You do that when you have 20,000 parts to make. And right now, we're not incentivizing that by having protective tariffs in place to motivate the large volume jobs to come back to America, so the 20-man machine shop can justify that $500,000 investment in a robotic cell. They're not going to do it if they have 100 parts. They'll stick with their older machines, and we will never evolve if we do not get volume work for our manufacturers here in America.
Volume work, and that takes people, and that takes skills, and that's kind of where we're at. And fortunately, about 10 years ago, when I started going down to Washington. They did actually start investigating through the Department of Defense all of the red light areas where it was like, my goodness, we can't make one thing anymore. And as we learned with automobiles during the pandemic, you don't need to make everything somewhere else to cut off a supply chain. When you're missing the chip, the whole thing stops, right? So it's very critical that we're able to make some of these items that we need to defend our country here in the United States. We don't need to maybe make all of them. It'd be nice if we could make all of them, but we need to be able to make one of everything at some sort of scale, so that in the event of a supply chain disruption, we're able to rebound and recover from that.
100%. And with the location of the new threat matrix of, Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran, when we have all a significant part of our manufacturing based in Southeast Asia, right where the threat matrix is, and any armchair military strategist knows that at the beginning of war, supply chains are the number one target. So there's a massive incentive to reshore a lot of our manufacturing just in the name of being able to provide goods in a time of war.
Right. And this leads very nicely into our next segment, which we're going to take a break here, and we're going to go off and pay some bills. But Manufacture Local is a book that you wrote, and it talks about a lot of these issues. And I'm anxious to know what it was that motivated you to write this book. I can kind of guess by talking to you. Okay, I've talked to you before. But it's a really interesting book, and we're going to go through a couple of the sections of the book and discuss them at length. And then I'm guessing by looking at this, we're probably going to run out of time, so we're going to have you back at some other time to do a deeper dive into it. So, everybody, this is Home Talk USA. This is the Made in America Hour. I'm here with John Gardner from CNC Broach Tools. We're going to be right back in a couple minutes to talk about his book, Manufacture Local. Welcome back to Home Talk USA. This is the Made in America Hour, and I'm Greg Owens here for our final segment with John Gardner. And John, as we know, owns a company by the name of CNC Broach Tools. We talked about that, and now it's time to transition into his book, Manufacture Local. Welcome back, John.
Thanks for having me again, Greg.
Okay, so the first chapter of this book is basically titled, What Happened to American Manufacturing? So from your perspective, Michael and I spent about 20 minutes rambling on about that, but what happened?
Well, yeah, first of all, the title of the book is Manufacture Local, How to Make America the Manufacturing Superpower of the World Again. And the number one thing I want to do was present solutions, because I've heard politicians, economists, and academics try to write about our industry for so long, and all you hear is them saying how things should be and complaining about it, but never presenting solutions. So the number one thing I wanted to do was present solutions to fix all this. And that's what I'm probably most proud of, is I think I present a very good, clear policy path that every politician in America should be required to read my book. So enough of my shameless self-promoting. What happened in American manufacturing was America got deluded and fooled by its economists, namely Milton Friedman and in his free trade agenda dogma and how he talked about unilateral free trade. And unilateral free trade means no matter what another country does, no matter how much they tariff us at, no matter how much they steal our IP, no matter the cost of national security, no matter what, we should always tariff at the lowest level possible. And currently, America tariffs at the lowest rate that we can. That's 3.4% on average, while as India tariffs at 50%, 100%, and 150%. What everybody forgets is that America paid its bills via tariffs for 140 years. From 1780 to the 1920s, there were no income tax. There were no sales tax. None of these taxes that targeted citizens existed. The whole American system was set up to get external funding and promote our industrial base and protect our industrial base with tariffs. The internal revenue system has now targeted our American citizens for revenue, and we do not get external funding. So what happened was we followed this unilateral free trade dogma, and we justified the offshoring of historically made in America products to pursue cheap labor and goods that were made with where you can mine and get good raw materials for manufacturing from environmental sources that are not very environmentally sound. And this drained our economy. And it drained our manufacturing know-how. And so all this was perpetuated by this embrace of free trade dogma. And I believe in free trade. Well, how does that make sense, you may ask? Well, I believe in free trade within America. I believe that when I sell to a California company, they put a $1,000 purchase order in with me. Well, they have to pay $1,100 because the state of California collects $100. But if that same company puts a $1,000 purchase order in with Communist China, they don't pay that 10%. How can a communist Chinese company pay sell a product for less than me in the home state of California can do that for? That is crippling our industry by not having tariffs in. And a fascinating fact about tariffs and targeting American citizens for revenue as opposed to targeting people who want to access our market. America has the largest consumer market in the world. Everybody wants access to our market. One of the hallmarks of capitalism is if you have something of value, access to our consumer market, you charge for that. I believe tariffs should be the price to access our market to sell your goods here. Why don't people pay to access our market? Yeah, America, that would actually balance the scales quite a bit. But a fascinating fact about tariffs is that for average rate of 15%, this was researched by Charles Benoit at the Coalition for Prosperous America. I know you know who they are, Greg. He said that we would raise in tariffs the $492 billion that the lower income earners, 90% of them in America make. That means we could wipe out the income tax for 90% of Americans. Imagine, and then imagine how much if 90% of our society had the free cash flow of not paying income taxes, and then that cash flow that they do spend is directed to made in America manufacturers that then hire more Americans. That creates a circular economy, and that dollar stays within our economic system and makes us a stronger nation. So how America got here is we embraced a dogma where I believe in free trade. I just don't believe in free trade for China to access our system. Where is the moral obligation that when free trade comes into play? We fought a civil war to end slavery in America. A lot of Americans died to end this evil concept of slavery. But that moral obligation to end slavery ends at our borders in the name of free trade. You say, well, what are you talking about, John? Our supply chain is permeated with goods made by forced labor from overseas in the name of free trade. I can let you jump in there, Guy. I didn't mean to go on a rant.
Yeah, you know, I call it the out of sight, out of mind impact. There are all these things that we believe in here in the United States, and you know, whether they're environmental issues, whether they're ethics issues like slavery, and they're just things that horrify us. And as long as it's going on the other side of the world, we tend to you know, look the other way. I just throw one out there: coal. China's putting a coal plant online every day, and that's what they use to produce their energy. Can you imagine what would happen here in the United States if we were putting a coal-fired power plant online every day?
That's why
people would have a fit.
That's why their goods are cheaper to make, because American industry, manufacturers consume a third of our energy produced in America. Energy goes into the cost of your end good that you sold, the consumer good. The consumer pays for the cost of energy. So when we tamp down on our energy production, people pay more. Yet China can accelerate their energy production, and people are like, well, made in America is too expensive. It's because we're not following the policies that make us cheap, can make American goods cheap. Go ahead, Greg.
Well, as I predicted, we ran out of time on the first question. So, John, we're going to have you come back at some point to go through some of the other chapters of these books and really do each concept, each chapter justice, because these are concepts that free trade has been a big lie for many years, and people have been told little cliché things about it, and they've been misled. So it's our job to go on the airwaves and to bring this information out onto the table so people can really think about it and make decisions for themselves and do the right thing that's both morally good for them and good for our country. So thanks again, John. Where can we get your book real quickly?
You can get Manufacture Local by John Gardner on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Walmart, and bookshop.org. Just Google Manufacture Local book. And I hope all the listeners read it so they can understand the importance of having a manufacturing base to our middle class and our economy.
Okay. Well, thanks again for being here. We'll have you back soon. Again, this has been the Made in America Hour. I'm the Made in America guy, Greg Owens. We'll see you again or talk to you again next week.